Welcome to the All About Pigeons podcast, brought to you by the All About Pigeons nonprofit organization, which is dedicated to promoting education and promotion of the pigeon hobby. Every week, a listener requests to drive our conversations about all things pigeons. Join me, Philip Fry, as we learn and share stories about these incredible birds and this ancient hobby. Today, we're going to be talking all about the American Pigeon Museum in Oklahoma City. We have the curator of the museum, Lorrie Monteiro. Lorrie, thanks so much for coming on and talking with us.
Well, thanks for asking. I appreciate it.
How did this museum even get started? What's the history behind the museum itself?
The history is actually a group of pigeon fanciers, as they're called. There's a group that races pigeons all over the world, but we're talking about this groups in the United States. So multiple pigeon flying racing clubs got together 30, 40 years ago, I think, and started the idea really with that. And then there's also all around the world, but we're talking about the United States right now, is a group of people who raise fancy pigeons, which are genetically the same pigeon as the racing ones, but they've been bred to look all sorts of different ways, different colors, different types of feathers, things like that. So it took them many years to raise money to do that. And then when I came on board, it was in an old house. The museum was technically the living room of the old house, and they had their meetings in the other rooms and things like that. And so they had decided, before I came on board, actually, they had decided to build a new building next door. They had raised enough money, and so they brought me on to take what was in the old house and make it into a museum next door, which was much larger than the house. So it was a fun thing to do. But that's how it started. It was just a group of people, mostly here in Oklahoma, but I have to say there are people from all over the country who donated time and money to get this thing started. And I think it's because the people who are raising these pigeons for show or racing, they love their birds. It's not just an animal to make money off of. They love their animals, and they are very good with their breeding. And the pigeons that we are able to bring over to the museum on the days we're open have all been donated by the different particular breeders in the area.
You've been there since the initial founding and since its beginning then.
Well, I've been here since, let's see, 2011. I started working for them. And the building, I think the house they was in, I think they had been in that about 10, 15, maybe even 20 years. I'm not sure. So, but I came at the beginning of the new building, and that was my job.
Oh, wow. Were they actually given like tours and stuff when it was in the house?
They did. No, not many people. It was called the World of Wings back then, and not many people knew it existed. I mean, even when I opened the museum next door, a lot of people from Oklahoma City came in and had no idea it was there. So I think it was really just the people who were racing and showing birds that knew about it. And occasionally, because it wasn't a well-traveled road back then, people would stop. And if they saw the sign World of Wings to see what it was. And if they were open, then they would have them come in and tell them about it. But it wasn't until they got the newer building open that people realized that there was a museum, and that's what we're about, is to tell that history that these people had started a long time ago.
I went to it during the Grand National at the beginning of the year, and I went there three different times, and it does take a couple of times because there's so much stuff and so many different, just the variety too. You guys really cover, and that's kind of what we do on the podcast. We cover rolling racing, all the different things and the history. You think you kind of know and see it all, and then you just learn about this whole other fascinating, go down this next rabbit hole. Is it all just through donations, or where do you guys get a lot of items that are in that museum?
Well, over many years, many of the pigeon fanciers were collecting. They would collect things. They have magazines, journals that they've had for 50 years, 60 years, and so some of the collections was that. And so what they did is, when they opened the small house and they had people visiting, there were a number of people who donated back then, bringing like the time clocks that used to be used when they were racing. Now it's all electronic, but and just different memorabilia people would drop off. And when I went into the old house, excuse me, when I started, what would have been bedrooms in the house was just packed full of boxes. And so it was my job to take all this stuff and put it in a bigger building, because they ran out of space. I'm not sure that's why they built the building. I think they just wanted to be able to show that something more. They wanted to show, as you saw, they want to show the history. There were two brothers in Oklahoma who built that military loft to Army standards, and it just grew. And when I came on, and they knew that they were going to open the building, more and more people started donating all their things, lots of things.
Yeah, yeah. The that mobile loft is pretty impressive when you walk in and you see that right there. You got a vehicle right inside the building there.
Not only do they take pictures, but a lot of people after they go through ask more questions about it, about how how they train the birds and that kind of thing, and what they did in the military. So it is fascinating.
Too. That was one of the things I was always been curious about with, being a homing pigeon and how they actually did that. And you guys have a real nice display board right there. So I went up there and I took a picture and I read it and I was like, oh, okay, so that's how they do it. They had actual the training process and everything laid out. So that was pretty interesting. What is one of the things you hear a lot of people say when they're coming and going through there and leaving the museum or in the museum?
Well, when they come to the museum, initially, the people that came in would stand at the front door, and I was by myself working then, and then they'd say, "Well, why is there a pigeon museum?" And I'm like, "Well, that's why you're here. Let me show you." And now, and a lot of it is social media, but we've been open since 2014. So, but it just didn't get as much press. And so with Ashley, that works the front area now, she does great with social media, and so I credit her and Lauren also, who works there, for bringing people in that way. I mean, social media does work and it brought more people in. But initially, it was more just curiosity. Why would you have a pigeon museum? Because it doesn't say, the military, it just says the American Pigeon Museum outside. And so, and even, today when you go by or I worked there last weekend, and there were a number of people that came in that just my kids have been trying to get me to go here. I really didn't want to come, but and then when they're done, I have to say 99.9% of the people when they're done just say to us, "We had no idea." And this is so cool. And that's what it's all about. I mean, that's what museums are about, is educating. And it's fun to see people coming in questioning, why pigeons. And then when they start looking and seeing and asking questions, it is a lot of fun to see. And when they're done, like I said, the majority are just so thrilled, and they bring their families back when they come for visits. And we also, we're only open the 2 days a week, but we the three of us that work there, if somebody calls and wants to have a tour and their family's only going to be there on Sunday, one of us will go in and open the museum just so we can let them see it so they don't miss it.
Is there any particular exhibit or even like part of the museum that you think is like the most popular?
I have to say that front, when you first walk in and you see the mobile military loft, that's from replica of the one in World War II, and then we have that center hall is really the military history, and I think that's what gets people. And then now that we're able to bring some of the pigeons over during the day when we're open, that's a huge feature for people. I mean, we have people come back all the time just to see the birds too, because they had so much fun. Initially, we had the birds outside, but unfortunately, even with good cages, we had hawks that would come. And um, so we have a large. It's not open to the public. We used to show people the loft that the birds live in, but now there's a family that actually raises pigeons and takes care of them. So we can't, and they have kids, so we don't let them go over and see it. But if the owner of the house is in the museum, he'll take people over so they can see that the birds are living in a very large, large loft. They can fly in it. They can be separated from each other if they want to be. It's not like the cage. You probably saw the cages that were in the museum,
Right.
and they're just small cages. And what we do is we bring over, or if the gentleman over next door brings over, usually 8 to 10, sometimes 12 when we're open. And he's the one that cares for them. He feeds them. He gives them water, of course, and then he also checks to make sure they're healthy. He takes great care of them. But we have fun bringing them over so people can see that there are fancy pigeons, and they don't look like the racing homers, which look like the regular pigeon, if you will.
That's right. I forgot you guys actually have like an exhibition area for
Yeah.
the live pigeons.
Yes.
That's right. And
Yes.
how many do you usually have over there? You said about 8 or 10.
I think we could hold 12. Sometimes, depending on who's getting the birds in the morning. If it's me, I don't get very many because I'm not tall enough. And the loft is very large and tall, so I can't reach them. But usually it's 10 to 12 we bring over. And some of them are the same because they're very unique looking. I don't know if when you were there, there's one, she was called Lady Gaga. And unfortunately, well, we lost her about a month ago, but the breeder gave us another one that looked almost just like her. He's a male, so he's not Lady Gaga, but he has beautiful feathers that go up around his face, and he's very tall and slender. And so it just makes a statement, because when you go in and you're looking at the pigeons, you're thinking, when you're walking around, you're thinking, okay, it's going to look like the birds we see flying outside. And there are some like that, but the other ones have just like dogs are bred to look a certain way for their shows. These pigeons are not bred with anybody else. they're bred, they're usually paired up that look alike, but genetically they're all the same. So they can cross, there's not even crossbreeding. They can breed them. It depends what the people who are raising them do, because they're geneticists themselves. They know what they're looking for. Pigeons can lay 2 eggs every 4 weeks if left in the wild, but when they're in captivity and somebody has a bird that has curly feathers, they might want to breed that aspect to try to pull that out and see if they can get more. And that's why if you look up fancy pigeons, there's all different kinds. But again, genetically, they're identical to the pigeons that you see flying around in the cities. They've just been bred to look differently.
Not too many museums have live animal exhibits in it,
No.
so that's a pretty cool feature right there.
It is, and sometimes depending on how the pigeons are doing, I mean they're friendly birds. They are very complacent because they're used to being handled.
Uh,
We will sometimes, if it's not too busy, we'll take one out at a time and let the kids either hold them or just pat them to see what it feels like. And as a side note, we have hand sanitizer there. So a lot of people still think pigeons are dirty, and it's just like handling a cat or a dog. We just tell them wash your hands or use sanitizer before you eat anything, and you'll be fine. But it is that's the fun part of it. I mean, I'm the history person, so I love that part. But it is fun to have people come in and go, "Oh my gosh, these are so cool."
so you just kind of mentioned this a little bit. So I mean, how do you think the perception of pigeons has changed over time in the United States here?
I still think in major cities it's not great because again pigeons can the rock dove, which is essentially what they are, but the pigeons can breed, like I said, 2 eggs every 4 weeks. So in the wild, no one's checking that. If they're in captivity, the people that take care of them and own them, they keep them apart, if you will, for a certain period of time if they know what they're going to be doing that, because they don't want to have an abundance of birds. It's only obviously they breed them if they want to have a certain trait, or if they have a racing homer that's spectacular, they're going to want to breed that. Um, but I think the perception I'm finding from when I opened to now, people are more excited about it. Initially, people would come in, like I said, and say, "Why is here a museum?" I had one woman who refused to come in because there were pigeons, and it's just all education. And I think people are seeing, and social media obviously helps. They're seeing that this is really kind of a cool thing, and then once they get in, as you said, you see the history, and you're like, "Wow, okay, this is different, and it's interesting."
I mean, that museum's obviously playing a big part of it right there too.
Yes,
That's
yeah, yeah.
yeah, really aligning and correcting perceptions on it. I mean, majority of the people that are coming in, is it pigeon fanciers or is it kind of families just kind of checking out a museum?
It's families. It's families. The pigeon fanciers, well, like when the National Pigeon Association was here in January, and by the way, they're going to be here every January now. They're
Nice.
going to have their show here, and it'll be open to the public, and it's free. But they when they're in town, they make up most of the people that come in. But on a routine day, a routine weekend, it's families. It's visitors who are either coming through or they're here and they Google it. And it's funny because I heard the other day that somebody said we just Googled it and you popped up first, and we're like, okay. So and then we found in the last few years there's the whole groups of people who just look for different quirky museums, and we get a lot of that. And we do have a lot of repeat people, and it's mostly, I'm not going to say kids. I mean, I'm an old woman, but 30s, 40s, bringing in their kids, and they're loving it. I mean, we have many repeat people that come in all the time, which is really cool. It's just really fun to see the new people that come in and their experience, but also the kids that come back in. And we had one little boy come in. He's 9 years old, and he had come in one week and I met him and his mom. And then about 2 weeks later, I was closing the museum and they came running into it. And she said, "Are you closing?" I said, "Well, not yet, but almost, but come on in." And he loves the pigeons so much and they live down the street from it. So she brings him in every Friday afternoon after school. And for Halloween this past year, he wanted to be a pigeoneer, like the ones the pigeon soldiers.
Oh
So
yeah.
she made him a uniform, and she showed me a picture, and he was a pigeoneer for Halloween. I thought that was awesome.
That's really cool. I've never heard anybody dressing up as that, but how about that? I'd give that kid a whole bag of
So
candy. That's awesome.
that's right.
So, being that a lot of your stuff is through donations and through other pigeon fanciers, is there any particular items that have kind of got a cool story behind it that you guys have in the museum?
We have a lot. Well, you were in the museum, so you saw that we have a lot of timing clocks. But what's unique about them is they're different time periods that they were used because they started very small and rudimentary, all the way up to now. It's all electronic. They don't have those clocks anymore. It's all electronic. But I have to say, the military history and all of that, a lot of people get really involved with the one of the cases again you probably saw where she has the containers that the pigeons were placed in to be dropped out of the airplanes, or the parachutes that were attached to the gentleman. And so I think that's what really gets people. And Ashley that works there, she's coming up with all sorts of like funky little things for kids to do. We have a large collection of bird bands for the racing pigeon that's next door. Racing pigeon unit that's next door is the national headquarters for the racers in the United States. So they have to order so many bands for the birds because birds have to be identified by a certain number, and the bands are put on when they're babies. And we have boxes and boxes of older bands. So Ashley's starting to do things like let's make a bracelet day, or she has all these different activities she's come up with because she's much younger than I am. She has younger kids, but she's coming up with activities to use some of these things, but also they get to bring something home to remember the museum by. So
Yeah, that is really cool. I did see some of those bands, and some of those older bands are, people really like those. I have when we do the pigeon presentations, we collect old bands and we hand them out to the kids, and the kids are all rummaging through,
yeah,
colors and sizes and stuff like
yeah.
that. The bracelets, that's a really cool idea. I bet the kids really enjoy stuff like that right
Well,
there.
it's just a simple thing, but it's we have boxes of them, and why not let the kids enjoy using them? So we're not going to throw them away. So, and again, Ashley's very creative. So she does a lot of different things with the kids, and I just love it. So, because it does bring more kids in with their families, and I think it's just fun. And I think that we're just going to keep continuing to grow as far as our population coming in when more and more people are seeing, because we still get first timers and we still get the skeptics. But again, I don't think I've ever really seen anybody, maybe one or two, that left not thinking, not really thrilled about it. Because I think that, as with yourself, I'm not sure if you do this, but you walk in thinking, what am I going to see? What is this all about? And then you realize as you're going through the museum, it's like, oh, I didn't know about this stuff. And so, and as you saw, we have lots of artwork, and some of it's been people who've raised pigeons. And then, we have one artist who was from Germany, and he just painted all sorts of paintings because he loved the bird. And so we were blessed to get a lot of his paintings and things like that. But we have all different donations of artwork from different people, and we don't have everything up on the wall. We can't possibly do that. When I first opened it, we didn't have enough, and now we have a lot, so we have to kind of change it out every now and then. But I think the military exhibit in the middle won't change that much because it really does tell a story, and that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah. Are
So.
there any plans for growth onto the building or into the museum itself?
Not at this point in time, and I'm not sure. We do still have some land around that I think if they got really busy and we started fundraising that maybe they would, but I think right now the board, I always say the board, I'm the president of the board now because I moved back into town. I was gone for a couple of years. But I think the board as they were before, I think their plan is to keep it as it is right now, and we'll just change up the exhibits and bring people in. And but I think there's always down the road, there's always that, can we add on, what can we do? I know that the Racing Pigeon Union next door, which is the national headquarters, they had their meeting here a couple weeks ago, and many of them had never been to the museum. So a lot of them came in, and it was funny because I guess they didn't know what to expect because a lot of them were like, we didn't know it was going to be this nice. And, we're kind of laughing like, well, that's what we're trying to do that. So they're already thinking about, their wheels are turning about how can we do more for the museum. So we'll see. I mean, I think that we can always just keep improving. I think it's great now, but I think we always have to change things and improve. So, and that's my job is, since I'm the history person and I'm the curator, right now that's my job to change up exhibits and things like that. And I'm working on a few. I just put another exhibit out the other day for one of the cases. It's still about the war. It's still about World War I and World War II. But I specifically chose other birds that people hadn't heard of because everybody who knows the history knows about GI Joe, or they know about Cherami, who's at the Smithsonian in World War I. But there's so many others that have interesting stories. So I kind of set up a case with a couple of different birds from World War I and a couple from World War II that have just a different interesting story of how they survived, but what they did.
The one exhibit that really caught my eye, and I spent a lot of time looking into was they make out of gourds and they put on the back of the birds, specifically like in China, because I kind of saw YouTube about it one time, and even using the internet, I was unable to find much about it. And then you guys had a really nice display case. You actually had some of the gourds there that were
Mhm.
carved out and everything else, and had tons of information. And I was like, oh wow, here we go. Like you guys beat the internet on that one. So congratulations on that. That was really,
Well,
really
we
cool.
we hope to one day have, I mean, we need to do some fundraising, I guess, but we hope to one day even have an iPad or something. And in fact, Ashley asked me that just recently. She said, and I've been trying since day one to try to get a small monitor or something because I mean, I know you can Google it. You know, that's what we tell people. Google Chinese bird whistles or Chinese pigeon whistles, and then you can see them in action and you can hear it. And it's a very
Yeah.
eerie sound, but it's really cool. But yeah, there's a gentleman that has made a lot of videotapes of different aspects of the pigeon, and he has one that has a few clips with that of the birds and how they're made, how the whistles are made, and how
Yeah.
they're placed on the bird because they're very lightweight. They're bamboo, so they're very very light. But we need to do more with that because I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, yeah, that was really cool that you guys actually had some of those gourds. And you guys even have like an area in the back where you're playing like little pigeon movies and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So, I mean, you guys have all the different things you could possibly want, and you're doing a lot with that building using all
Well,
the
we're trying.
space,
I
you
mean,
know.
we're trying to educate like museums do. It is quirky, it is funny, but there's a lot of artwork. But again, a lot of these pigeon fanciers, as they're called, they collect their art. Whether you're a racing pigeon person or a fancy pigeon, sometimes you're both, but they love their artwork. And a lot of people have great collections, and we have a couple of people who've donated their whole collection to us, and only probably a third of it, if that, is out because their collection is so big. And again, that's what we do is we try to change it out every now and then to do that. And I think we're going to have, Ashley's been thinking about some cool things to get people in. I know one day she had a food truck, but we're going to have to try to do some other things to get people to come in, that have already been in, whether it's crafts for the kids or whatever it is. We're going to try to do more with that. And I think we're looking at doing maybe something in the evening, like a wine and cheese thing, to maybe get some adults to come in and see what they think. And because we always love people when they come in, is to, we'll ask them questions, and we love to know if there's something they didn't like, we want to know and why. What can we do better? But obviously, we also want to hear that they do like something. So,
Well, I guess even the fact that you guys are rotating the collection, so if you've been there once, you can't just be like, "Well, I've already seen it."
yeah.
Go back again because they might be rotating new
There
stuff in
might
there
be,
too.
that's right.
Yeah.
It may not be a big change, but we are trying. Like I said, and I don't know if people will notice it right away or not. But I did change up one. I've done it a couple of times since I've been back for a year and a half, and I've done it a few times. But I'm working on a couple more right now because I like the exhibits as they are. But again, if you want people, when people are coming back in, they might want to see something a little different, and that's what I'm trying
Mhm.
to do is to keep the good stuff that people like, the loft and the birds, of course, and then just put some other things in there.
Plus, you guys have one of the only complete collections of the American Pigeon Journal, right? I think there's only
Yes.
like four or five in the United States, and you guys are one of them.
We have lots of journals in storage, but the ones that are in the library that are housed together in binders and different things are whole sets. And we do have some people who come in looking for them. And so I'm also in the process of trying to, we have boxes and boxes and boxes of those that have been donated. So I'm trying to see if I've got another full collection, but it's, again, and we have lots of books, as you probably saw. We used to have a library. That one room that has the books in it used to be all library. But then we realized we didn't need to put out every single book we had because some of them were duplicates, triplicates, and
Mhm.
whatever. So, but we do have, yeah, we have lots of journals and things. And we also have, there's a small exhibit at the museum, and I'm going to make this bigger again, I think, is there's one for, his name is Dr. Hollander, Willard Hollander, and he studied genetics. And so when I started working at the museum in the old house, there was one of the bedrooms was full of boxes. And when I looked in it, uh, I realized my boss, basically my first boss there, looked at it and said, "Oh, they're so dusty. We can clean it out for you. I can get rid of it." And I told him not to touch anything in the house until I saw it. And when I looked in these boxes, I mean, there were 40 boxes, and it was his life's work in genetics. And he studied pigeons because pigeons, again, they can drop 2 eggs every 4 weeks. So if you're trying to look for variations of something, you're going to see it a lot quicker. And he was studying the pigeon colors and the types of feathers and things like that. And so we finally, it took quite a while, few years, we finally got it all cataloged. And so, and then we've had people actually come to the museum. They'll call and reserve time to come in to go to the back, in the back area, just to look at his work, because he
Wow.
didn't have computers back then. He was all handwritten notes, and so that's a treasure we don't want to have anything happen to.
Wow. Yeah, that is some serious archives right there.
So we're trying, we're a small operation, but we're trying to, and that's why they hired me, because I think they tried to have other people do it, and they realized they need somebody who, and not patting myself on the back, I'm just saying they need somebody to kind of organize it. Let's put it that
Mhm.
way, organize it better, and that's what we've tried to do, so we can
Excellent.
find things too.
Nice. And you're not kidding either about the when I was there too, because people are like, oh, and the ARPU is right next door. It's literally like there's a little patch of grass between the two buildings. And so when I was there, I walked, across the patch of grass and went over to the ARPU too. So yeah, anybody who's into racing pigeons as well, there's your headquarters. So you can walk right there and check that out as well too. But yeah, the American Pigeon Museum, they got a Facebook. The American Pigeon Museum's on Facebook. Their website is theamericanpigeonmuseum.com. I believe there's also a TikTok too, and they're coming up on some more social media too. So just keep your eye out, search them out on there. But Lori, this has been a real pleasure talking to you about this. So thanks so much for coming on.
Of course, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to another ad-free, listener-requested episode of the All About Pigeons podcast. If you like the show and want to help it keep it going, as well as supporting your other pigeon promotional work, head to the website PigeonPod, that's pigeonpod.com. You can make a donation there. If you can't make a donation today, support the show by giving us a good 5-star review wherever you're listening to us at right now. That really helps the podcast and helps the algorithm get us out there to other people who might not know about Pigeon Podcast. If you have any episode requests, upcoming pigeon shows, competition results, or you want to be a guest on the show and just talk about some pigeons, or you have a shout out for a friend, shoot us an email at staff@pigeonpod.com. Thanks again for listening. We really appreciate your support. And remember, together the hobby thrives. Support each other and enjoy your pigeons.